We're just getting started. So after
Hey,
a
Jan.
brief welcome, we're going to have a land acknowledgement, then review some group norms just very quickly, spend a few minutes checking in with each other. Then we're going to show a brief video that was made by the 350 Seattle CAT team, and followed by a presentation by Grace Hope, one of the leaders of the 350 Seattle Civic Action team. At the end, there's going to be time for Q&A, and then we'll have announcements at the very end. So my name is Lynn Hagedorn, and I'm one of the 350 Eastside co-founders and steering committee members. We are an all-volunteer organization affiliated with the global climate organization 350.org and work in close partnership with 350 Seattle. And we're working to build a movement for climate justice. We mobilize ordinary people to create the people power and the systems change needed to stop the fossil fuel industry and work towards safe, just, healthy future for all. And we'll move to the land acknowledgement. Thank you, Phil and Lynn.
We are Lynn and Phil Ritter. We live in Sammamish. We've been involved since the beginning of 350 Eastside, and then before that with 350 Seattle. And I'll read the land acknowledgement, which will also be put in the chat. Today, Indigenous people continue to protect and remain in relationship with these ancestral lands and will do so until the end of time. It is vital to honor these beginnings and recognize the ongoing dedication and importance of Indigenous culture within our communities and within the land where we gather, live, learn, and work. We acknowledge that this land is the traditional territory of Indigenous peoples, the Duwamish, the Snohomish, the Tulalip, Snoqualmie, Muckleshoot, Puyallup, Suquamish, and Wenatchee, among others. We recognize the impact of settler colonialism on these peoples, and we pledge to nurture our relationship with our Coast Salish neighbors as we work to restore and sustain their homelands upon which we all depend. It is essential to understand the long-standing history, including the genocide and violence that has brought us to reside on the land, and to seek to understand our place within that history. Land acknowledgements do not exist in the past tense or historical context. Colonialism is a current, ongoing process, and we need to build mindfulness of our present participation and understand that the displacement and genocide of Indigenous people and the continuing decimation of Indigenous lands are connected with the same violence and problem relationships with those who have been harmed, listening to calls for repair. What can you do? Check out the Snoqualmie Tribe Ancestral Lands Moment and engage in the call for action. And we'll put a link in the chat. And then we're also interested in talking about the norms of the group. Speak your truth responsibly. Your impact matters. Move forward and then move back. We listen with empathy, but we don't assume shared experiences. And let's work together to carry this conversation in a good way.
Great. Thanks, Phil. Feel free to put your preferred pronouns next to your name just by going to those three dots in the upper right-hand corner and then clicking on rename and adding your pronouns like I'm doing right now. We're now moving to check-ins, which just is a moment for us to make sure that we know who's in the room. Again, Lynn Hagedorn, and I already kind of introduced myself, she, her pronouns. We do have a check-in question if anybody's interested, and that is, what signs of spring do you see in your yard or neighborhood, even though the official start of spring is still over a month away? And in our yard, we're starting to see the crocuses pop up, which is just so delightful. So that's my check-in, and I'm going to popcorn it on to Jan Keller.
And Jan, there she is.
Hi. Hey, everybody. My pronouns are she, her. And are we doing a little bit of like sharing or just answering the question?
You should go ahead and share. Yeah, because
Okay.
not everyone knows you. So yeah, it's great to see you, Jan.
Yeah, it's good to see you. I'm just happy to be involved in environmental lobby days, which you guys probably know about. That what used to be Washington Environmental Council is now Washington Conservation Action, I think. And they help kind of bring lots of people together for the environmental priorities of the year and for Washington, for our environmental lobby days. So that's been yesterday, today, and tomorrow. And I've been happy to be involved in that, and keeps me, kind of fills up those days. So, and yeah, I've seen camellias blooming. Are they a winter flower or are they a spring flower? This is an eternal question. And I'll hand it to Emily.
Hi, Emily, she, her, steering committee member of 350 Eastside. Gosh, what have I seen? I was racking my brain. I don't have a very large yard. I have a very, very tiny one outside, and it's like part of a condo association, so it's not mine. I have like a bush of rhododendrons in the front, and I'm kind of watching to see if there is anything, but I don't see anything. So it's very dormant here. Yeah, that's it. Excited for spring to come though. Okay. Dominique, did you go yet? Go ahead.
Okay. I've been a member of the 350 Seattle. I did not know there was a Eastside subgroup, but I found that out on the 350 monthly newsletter. So I was happy to see there's a subgroup in Eastside. I'm from Sammamish as well as Phil. Signs of spring, I have to admit, I'll have to go back in my yard and pay more attention next time. Sorry about that. And I'm gonna pass it to Christy.
I'm Christy Weir, she, her. I have hellebore in my yard, sometimes called the Christmas rose. I'm also involved in environmental lobby days. So we're in different districts, I guess, so it's very busy. And I've actually been an advocate of 350 WA Civic Action Team. I wrote an article for our church newsletter because I think it is the most user-friendly way to respond to bills. I mean, I get many, many requests, but you know it's going to come twice a week. You know when it's going to come, and it's really, I think, the most user-friendly one I've seen. Are we done?
We'll just
Phil
pass
and
it back
Linda,
to, I think Lynn hasn't had a chance to really
Okay.
introduce herself. Yeah, thanks, Christy. Phil's going to help me with this. My name is Lynn Ritter, she, her. God, it's been so long since I've done this. Any signs of spring in your yard or neighborhood, Lynn?
We have, after having lived on a boat way too long, I'm just happy to see the grass. It's wonderful. It's on my side. I tell you, I take grass personally. And it's so nice to see everybody's face, and the fact that there's still a little cold outside, but this is a terrific group of people, and I'm learning a lot, and thanks for bearing with me.
Yeah, it's good to see you.
And our poor rhododendron that barely survived the heat wave is going to produce some flowers this year.
Yes.
Not many.
That's okay. Well, that was lovely. Thank you so much. And we're going to move to a short video produced by 350 Seattle Cat, which some of you may have already seen if you were in attendance at their launch meeting. It is a great overview of the work of 350 Cat. After that, we're going to have Grace Hope from the 350 Cat team talk to us more about the current work they're doing and how to get engaged for anybody who isn't, although I think almost everybody here is pretty up to speed. So if everyone is familiar with CAT, we could just jump into what we need to know now and what's currently happening at the legislature. Take it away, Phil.
Resources and hopefully most of your questions answered. I'm going to hop back on screen share really quick. And I just want to talk us through just a couple of big picture things of like, what in the world is happening and what is this campaign? Some folks have been here for a while and you maybe already know all these answers, and some folks are new. So we definitely want to welcome folks into this space. First of all, the 350 Washington Network was born in 2020, and we are the first coalition networked coalition of independent 350 groups of its kind in the US. So independent 350 groups sprinkled across the state. You can see where we are, where we have 350 groups. And in 2020, we united to form a coalition and decided that this campaign that used to just be a 350 Seattle campaign really belonged to the whole coalition because we're doing statewide work. So these last few years, we've really been learning how to do this work in coalition with one another, how to prioritize our relationships with each other, and how to do really good climate advocacy on statewide policy together. And what do? We do really cool things together. Years ago, we started as just an email list. Call your lawmaker, send an email to your lawmaker. These are our stats from last year's legislative session, which was a short session. We did a grand total of over 21,000 individual advocacy actions done by about 400 people around the state. Let's just take a moment, maybe breathe if you were part of making this happen last year, because this was a huge, huge lift. And also celebrate ourselves because we did this together. So I'm going to say woohoo. You can come off of mute. I'm a noisy person.
Ooh, incredible.
A lot of work. A lot of work.
Yeah. And so if you're new in this space, one really important thing to name early on is that we can kind of think of ourselves as two big crews. We have our volunteer crew that makes and organizes all these actions, makes them possible. But who are we making them possible for? We're making them possible for a big, wide action, a statewide action taking crew, which we hope to grow. It's a little over 2,000 folks right now. So starting session, we'll be giving our action taking crew things to do with us. And between now and then, our volunteer crew is going to be creating these actions. All right, so just a little bit about who we are as a network for 350 Washington. Our network unites the 350.org local groups across the state to grow the global and people-powered movement for climate justice. We organize for widespread systemic change that guarantees a healthy planet for all living beings. And we do this work by working collaboratively to advance socially equitable and scientifically sound solutions to the climate crisis at the scale and speed necessary to mitigate harm. This is our shared mission together for the all 12 350 Washington groups, where we can agree that this is what we have in common and this is what we're about. But when it comes to our campaign together, we have a really specific mission for this campaign. We are all about education, advocacy, accessibility, and empowerment. We're about educating people and empowering them so that they can advocate during the Washington State legislative session. We really want to pass strong, sound, and just climate policy while strengthening partnerships and relationships. So we understand that 350 Washington is just one player in the big statewide scene, and we play an important role, but we're not the only folks out there. And we're working to do our work well with others. And last but not least, another big thing that all of our 350 Washington groups have in common is that we center climate justice in our work. We're committed to the connections between climate justice and racial justice. And all 350 local groups are working together at those intersections of climate justice and various justice issues. So you're going to be hearing about that a lot in the work that we do together, because the climate crisis disproportionately impacts low-income people, BIPOC communities, and marginalized communities across the state. And so we're committed to analyzing our policies that we're analyzing and acting with an equity focus. And inside of our volunteer spaces together, we value all levels of participation, and we want to create a culture of inclusivity together. So whether you're just interested in maybe taking actions, or maybe you want to be a volunteer with a teeny bit of time or a lot of time, however you're thinking of being with us, we're just really glad that you're here, and we want to honor your offering with us. Okay, take a breath there.
Any questions about what you saw just now?
I just want to thank you for bringing that. It was sort of fun. Like we got to be in this bigger meeting all of a sudden, and then come back to this one.
Yeah. Again, Grace Hope is going to be joining us. She had another meeting, an anti-racist meeting, and she will be able to join us at 7:30. But in the meantime, Emily, did you want to just introduce Grace by reading her bio?
Sure. Yeah, I can do that now. Let me just pull it up. Give me 1 second. Should be here.
And just to let you know, the native land link that we put in the chat is a link that you can use to determine whose land you're actually on, like whose native land your home or where you work or where you reside is who actually owned that land before you did. So that's one of the links. And then the other is a link about why it matters. So if you get a chance to save the links in the chat and check that out later at your leisure, that's really a beautiful thing to do, and to honor our Indigenous people who were on this land, thousands of years before the white people arrived.
Cool. Thank you, Lynn.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so while we're waiting for Grace to come online, I'll just go ahead and introduce them. So Grace Hope is Leadership Development Director and a 350 Washington Network Facilitator. Pronouns are they, them, so just a note about that. And then I'll just kind of read this nice blurb. This will be really interesting. So Grace Hope first came to 350 Seattle through a supporting role in the 2019 youth-led Seattle Climate Walkout. And they now work to support our growing community in a dual role as our Leadership Development Director and the 350 Washington Network Facilitator. Grace supports our nationwide work with the 350 Washington Civic Action Team legislative campaign, while supporting the 12 350 groups in the 350 Washington Network. And they contribute to our capacity building efforts at 350 Seattle as we seek to inspire our base into activism and leadership in our community. Grace was a busy single parent earning their degree in molecular and cellular biology when they first started volunteering with 350 Tacoma in their hometown as a way of making a difference in the climate crisis. They worked for several years on local climate issues, including port regulations and the liquefied natural gas facility. Hopefully most of you guys know about the LNG plant in Tacoma, and we're fortunate to be involved in organizing the youth-led climate strikes there. They also recently served as a commissioner with the city of Tacoma on issues of climate resilience and sustainability. As a molecular and cellular biologist, Grace enjoys thinking of the patterns and possibilities within living systems, and they're especially drawn to the beauty and strength of grassroots organizing, collective action, and non-hierarchical people power to transform systems of oppression. They're excited to continue deepening their understanding of justice and how to organize at a pace that is inclusive of all while responding to the existential emergency of the climate crisis. As an organizer, Grace enjoys connecting others to their own joy in the movement for climate justice and believes that everyone has a role to play, no matter how big or small. When they're not organizing, Grace enjoys singing, writing songs, dancing, meditation, jumping on their mini trampoline, and polar plunges. Okay.
Nice.
She's remarkable.
Yeah.
If we want,
They are remarkable.
thank you very much,
Yeah.
Phil. Yeah, they are remarkable. And they take their role so seriously in facilitating the 350 Washington network, which 350 Eastside is a part of. And I believe that's one of the reasons that they volunteered to show up as the CAT representative for us today. If we want to take this moment until Grace is able to join us to for announcements, I would welcome any announcements for the good of the group. We have a couple here on behalf of 350 Eastside, but if others would like to make an announcement first, please feel free to do that.
Good idea, Lynn. You can feel free to also drop helpful links in the chat too. Folks if you have resources that you think folks would be interested.
Has everyone here seen the Washington Environmental Priorities Coalition page for this year yet? I'll drop the link in the chat. The nice thing about what's happened, so every year, just before the legislative session, Washington Conservation Action brings together lots of organizations and they sit down and they try to make some priorities, just so we have a lot of voices talking about specific environmental priorities. Any organization, any person can advocate for all sorts of things, but everybody's trying to add their voices to those priorities. I'll drop the link in the chat. The nice thing about it is right now, they've added the one-pagers there's links to the one-pagers, and those are one-page double-sided sheets that compress a lot of detailed information about the different priorities. And so those are all there now, and you can easily see them. There's also some bill numbers for a couple of those things. The two priorities that start with invest, so there's invest in salmon and there's invest in climate action. Those are going to be multiple bills and budget work. So those don't distill, and the other priorities also have more than one bill that's sort of really related, but investment ones don't have like a single bill that they would point at. So just nice to see that expression of kind of a perspective on things too. And there's also the partnership agenda that is other really important justice and social awareness kinds of things that really contribute to us making progress together on taking care of our world.
Yeah, 350 Eastside is a member of that coalition, but I'm not sure that we have anyone right now who's able to make all their monthly meetings. I've been to a few of them.
Thanks, Jan. That's
It's a
great
great group.
information. Yeah.
Yeah. I was just excited when all the one-pagers appeared, where it's just really easy to zoom in on those issues and see that information.
That sounds great.
Hey, Grace,
Hi, Grace. So nice
welcome.
to see you.
Hi, everybody. I'm coming right from another Zoom. I'm so glad to be here. I was like, they better end on time. I got somewhere to be.
Grace, thank you so much for being here. We have already introduced you, and Emily read your really remarkable bio. No surprise there, and in how you not only have trained yourself, but also so dedicated to the environmental movement, and something that I've experienced, and I bet many others on this call have too, how your welcome to anyone is so big and broad at any possible level capacity that they have. And that's one of the many things that make you so unique and why we're so grateful to have you here tonight. So we have shown.
Thanks, Lynn.
Oh, so true. Not a shred of exaggeration there in any of that. We've shown a brief excerpt from the CAT launch, and now welcome you to take it from here.
Cool. Awesome. Well, I'm so glad to be here. Jan, it's nice to see you. I feel like you and I were in a call together. Was it the Environmental Lobby Days office hours this week? Yeah, okay. It's like, I know I recognize you from somewhere. Yeah, so nice to see you, Emily and Phil and Christy and Dominique. And Phil's wife, whose name I could never remember.
Glad
Lynn.
you could come.
Is it Lynn? Or is it two Lindas? Yeah,
Mhm.
okay, cool.
Lynn's.
Awesome. Yeah. Well, cool. Really happy to be here. As you all could imagine, I'm in the thick of the civic action team world right now. So I'm definitely coming out of that. Really, really excited to be sharing with you all tonight too, around kind of like what we're working on, how we're working on it. And I'm assuming that folks are pretty familiar with the civic action team, and also, you'll have also just seen the video as well. But I think what I'm excited to share about with you all is really kind of like our growth and where it is that we're really seeing ourselves be able to like shine, but also contribute in the statewide landscape to really good organizing. One of our, it's interesting, Lynn, you're kind of talking about that welcomingness. I really appreciate that. And I also kind of want to tie it to a conversation I had earlier today with one of our civic action team volunteers around how folks feel welcomed and engaged in our spaces, and how to do that well. And I think that's really been actually kind of the name of the game when it comes to the civic action team. Not just in how we welcome folks into the volunteer spaces, but really what we're trying to do with the civic action team campaign is make advocacy as accessible and welcoming to as many people as possible. With the way that we have our alerts set up, now we're doing text, but through social media, and then our twice a week action alert. I want to impress upon folks the level of work that goes into making our tools accessible. Our approach with our campaign is not to focus on 2 or 3 policies and then do like deep political organizing to make sure they pass. The way we shine is that big kind of noisy grassroots pressure where we can mobilize lots and lots of organic voices. But we do that on lots and lots of policies, not just on 2 or 3. It is astounding how complicated it is to try and do advocacy in Olympia or virtually in Olympia on any given topic, to know where that bill is, to know which committee it's about to go into and who in that committee like might be a problem and might need a little nudge. And so when it comes to doing legislative advocacy as an individual, folks are scrambling for resources. Like, how will I know about what policies to care about? I like to joke that there's approximately 47 million bills every year. How can we possibly know about them all? How can we be paying attention and then be able to do that timely call in by 5 or, do an action that's actually going to have a strategic impact. The last few years with the Civic Action Team and our incredible crew of volunteers that run that with me has been so focused on accessibility tools. And I like to emphasize that, when we put out a social media post, we have a very rigorous, does this work for folks who are colorblind? What's our alt text in the background for folks who are using a screen reader? We're thinking about, what does this look like on a mobile device versus a desktop? What happens if you try to click on this link and you don't have this thing set up? It kind of sounds nerdy and tedious, but we spend so many hours on the back end to be able to put out these products where folks can say, I'm a single parent, I'm working full time, I'm on the bus on my way home. I can with confidence take my cat action, click 1 or 2 buttons, be confident that it's effective, that it's the right action to be taking, that it's been well researched, and that folks aren't having to do that deep homework and that deep digging around for like, where's the right link? This is my 4th year supporting the Civic Action Team campaign, and I feel like as each year goes by, I'm just astounded at how tough they make it and how confusing they make it in Olympia. And we really like to think that part of what we do in CAT, really what our mission is in CAT, is to simplify it all, to make it as accessible for as many people as possible. And also what that means is that since we're so focused on extremely accessible tools on a bunch of different policies, we especially have been able to grow our partnerships and our relationships with other organizations in the state, because what we can do is say, like, we're going to do our best to cover this many policy areas, and here's how we see the climate and justice connections here. But maybe your community or your community organization really sees kind of your issues in this big umbrella. Maybe housing is a particular issue for a group, or transportation. Well, guess what? You can have your folks just use our CAT tools so that they're being provided with twice a week, super easy engagement tools. Throw down on whichever policies in here you feel like are relevant to your organization, take it. And that's really created a lot of beautiful doors for us to have partnerships with organizations who maybe don't have the infrastructure in place to create these incredibly accessible actions, but have a base who want to take accessible actions on those issues. And I think folks would always be like maybe a little bit astounded to know the level of work that goes into creating these actions every week. It's really astonishing that like dozens and dozens and dozens of volunteers it takes to produce them twice a week. Policy specialists, editors, proofreaders, the people who move it from this document to that document twice a week, the people who move it up the document twice a week. And folks are, you know, finding their niche, their roles, crunching the stats, watching our trends and action data, what time is good. But the assembly line is truly remarkable. It's a 7-day-a-week system that starts in the beginning of October in preparation and will run all the way through about a month after session as we're unwinding. And so it's I'm really, really proud of our CAT volunteers, of our really strong teams. And one day I think I want to make a little video just showing that this behind the scenes nerdery of what it takes to truly like make sure that all of this comes together. And it's been really great this year in particular, getting super clear on like, we know we can't cover it all, but we can cover a lot, and we can provide these resources to communities all over the state, outside of our organization, outside of our coalition. This is part of how we show up in the statewide landscape with an offering. And that's been really powerful. And of course, over the years, we've been building relationships, building partnerships, collaborating with lots of organizations at the statewide level. This year, we're especially glad that we were able to contribute and step in ways around the environmental lobby days, which tomorrow's the last day for that. In the past, we haven't had a whole lot of capacity to contribute there. We love those folks. We love sending folks there. But this year we were able to collaborate in a really great way and kind of starting out quite early in like October, November, convening folks like to help support with the education end. Because what we do in CAT is so much around education and access. And so this year with CAT, we've been able to help contribute some people power to making environmental lobby days happen this week, which is great. But we're really especially glad to be part of the convening the education event and the legislative advocacy fair that happened about a week and a half ago as part of our offering in that statewide landscape. Hey, we can help hold down convening the shape of this event that is strategically set up to support folks going into environmental lobby days. And so we're just really proud of the ways we've been able to show up with the Civic Action Team and play well with others in the statewide landscape and have those conversations of like, hey, we're all getting ready to head into session. We might have different policy platforms, but we've all got bases who are trying to figure out how to use these tools. Let's come up with a training that actually suits everyone's needs and collaboratively come up with what we think that needs to look like. So we're really glad to be part of that and really glad to be part of Environmental Lobby Days as well. I also wanted to like do a quick check. I'm assuming that everybody in this conversation has seen the Civic Action Team Survey Monkeys that come out twice a week.
Yep.
Yeah, okay. I might just pull one up really quick, just for the fun of it.
Let me make sure that I have you okay to share.
Oh, I'm just gonna drop it in the chat.
Oh, all right.
Um,
You can share if you want.
okay. All right, well, I'm just gonna drop this one as an example. This is the one that came out today. But yeah, we send these out to, I think we've got over 1,700 active folks on our email list across the state. So we're always hoping to recruit more folks, get more folks signed up from any organizations that folks are from. We just always like to drive folks to our sign up page and get more folks taking it. This campaign has been around for quite a number of years. It was started at 350 Seattle, I think, I want to say 7 or 8 years ago by just a handful of folks there. And then as we formed the statewide coalition of 350 groups in 2020 is when we're like, okay, actually this legislative campaign belongs to all of us. We're running it together. And when I first came on, I think in like 2019 or so, it's like, wow, we mobilized 3,000 actions. And then it was 3 times that, and then it was 3 times that, and we've just grown exponentially over the last couple of years. And so this is a long session now, and we just broke into the tens of thousands number. We're only, I think, in our 5th week, and we're the stats we crunched last night before today's action, we were at about 13,000 individual advocacy actions that people are taking. That's something we've also found has been like really important and powerful for people to feel like they're part of a collective, that they're not just taking their actions at home by themselves, hoping that their drop in the bucket is making some kind of difference. And so last year we mobilized for over 21,000 legislative actions in that very short session. We're pretty sure this session we're going to kind of blow all of our numbers out of the water because it's going through April. But we also really like to emphasize to folks that there's a significant amount of thought that goes into like which of these actions actually makes a difference. Because we've all signed form letters or like done the digital action that we're like, I don't know. we hope it's effective. The way that we've structured our CAT actions is generally after a lot of thought around what we think is actually going to make a difference and what we're hearing from legislative aides and lawmakers over the years as well. And really trying to provide a lot of options, really simple things like signing in pro, all the way to like, go lobby. And wanting folks to feel like they can have confidence and that what we're asking them to do is an effective action and not just like a way of gathering their email address. Which, form letters are great for that, but we like folks to feel like we're actually engaging in the system in a way that's going to be effective. I don't know. I could talk about CAT all day because I'm so passionate about it. I also want to name that something that's been really pivotal in CAT in the last 3 years now is we've been able to have this really beautiful partnership with the University of Washington's School of Social Work Master Program. So this is our 3rd year where I get to serve as our practicum supervisor for students who are working on their master's in social work, specifically in the environmental and policy administration track, to come serve their entire school year, their master's practicum placement with us. And so our first year we had 1 student, our second year we had 2, this year we have 3. We're already getting applications again for next year. But what that has looked like is because we spend all fall preparing for the legislative session, then all winter and part of spring in the session, it creates this really natural cycle that fits into the school year that has meant that we've been able to have these amazing cohorts of students coming in and onboarding with all the volunteers in the fall for the civic action team, but then really helping to manage the whole campaign with us in that way that helps provide incredible learning, but also I think we all know with working with volunteer communities can be very tough to have predictable capacity and say like, oh yes, we can totally do this campaign. We definitely have enough people. Our partnership with the University of Washington School of Social Work means that we can plan on, like, we've got these students, they'll be here with these hours, with these learning goals. We can definitely plan like a campaign around some of this capacity. But we've also been hearing really great feedback from the school that our practicum placement is one of the best. Really great feedback from students that they're getting that really transformational experience with us that leads to folks feeling like they weren't just the intern getting coffee, but came out of their master's program with like a really strong skill set. Another thing I really like to brag about is that a lot of folks who have been volunteers in CAT or taken on significant like leadership volunteer roles in CAT have been able to go on and transition into careers in policy in Washington State, and that's been really, really cool. We've got several folks now from the civic action team who now work in this field, thanks to the experience and the skills and the connections that they've been able to gain as part of the campaign. So that's a little bit of a tangent, but I like to consider those as like also wins as we're thinking about building our 350 community and building people's like competencies and skills to be doing this work. I realize I'm not talking about policy at all, which is maybe what folks are hoping for, but so much of my passion really at the end of the day as an organizer is about creating spaces where people can do really good work together, regardless of what the topic is. And being able to create volunteer spaces that like started out as 2 or 3 people and are now like 60 people specialized in all these roles. My passion is so much about volunteer engagement and capacity building and helping our campaign show up and play really well with partners and say like, high five, we're contributing this, you're contributing this, together we're helping the statewide landscape being part of an effective statewide landscape and not just out here doing our own thing. I'd also like, I realize I'm just talking a lot, so if folks have specific questions, I'd also welcome that. I won't just talk the whole time.
Well, you were billed as our presenter.
Okay, cool. Yeah, I have plenty to present. But yeah, I will just pause and take questions if anybody's got any.
So what's the most important social justice issue being dealt with in this session?
A great question, Phil. I feel like part of that is that so many more policies are being recognized as social justice issues than before. Policies like housing is a social justice policy area. Policies like who gets pulled over by the police and why do the police get to pull over people? Policies like, well, we've got a bill out there that just had a hearing this week to make it no longer a crime to jaywalk in Washington State, because that's a law that's being used really disproportionately against houseless folks and people of color. Not a law that's there to keep people safe, but it's really just a used disproportionately and not really about safety at all. I would also say that something kind of important for folks to have in kind of context. We have some really solid volunteers in CAT who are closely connected with our police accountability coalitions, and that's why we're able to do a fair amount of really solid advocacy around police accountability policy. But I want to flag for folks to kind of think about like what year we're in 2023. 2020 saw the movement for Black Lives and a huge national dialogue and lots of community support and a lot of like just national dialogue around policing. And so like you can imagine a little bit of a push for forward progress. Right now we're in 2023, which represents a year where there's been a lot of time to organize very, very big in the state against progress. And so a lot of what we've been paying attention to this year is bills that are very much kind of the long game is pushing back against any progress that happened in 2020, and fairly sophisticated and well funded. And so that's an area that we're paying attention to a lot this year, in particular because it's like this act, react kind of moment we're in of, you know, social progress in 2020, but the public appetite for that social progress in 2023 is quite low. And so that's one of the reasons why it's been important to us to keep moving that conversation forward at the state legislative level, is that social and racial justice in connection to police accountability and police harm. We're seeing lots and lots of big organizing pushing back against that progress in a landscape where the public isn't paying as much attention as we were in 2020. So that's my kind of long answer for you, Phil.
Thank you.
Yeah. Christy, I saw you had your hand
Oh,
up too.
I was going to make a comment. I guess I shared before you came on that I'm really impressed with your cat action team. I get the emails, and so I wrote a letter or an article for our church newspaper to say this should be your go-to way to sign into the legislature. So, and you also have made it very welcoming for me. So from my point of view, I get at least, besides cat, I get 3 other emails about how I'm supposed to respond to different things. And when I open those, I kind of get a heavy feeling that I'll never make it down through the whole list. But when I open cat, it says, oh, you know, if you have 5 or 10 minutes, do these 2 things, and you feel really good if you only do 1 or 2. And then if you have more time, do these others. But it leaves you with the feeling of accomplishment, whereas the others, I can never make it through the whole list in general. So I think you've been very successful as far as I'm concerned.
Wow, Christy, I'm gonna have to get a copy of this recording because that right there is the result of years of dialogue and iteration and conversation in our campaign, and incredible leadership, especially from Catherine Leggett, who's been a volunteer in the campaign and now works for Sparks Northwest. How to make it digestible, how to make it accessible. The answer isn't to just send out a gigantic laundry list. There's a lot of psychology involved. We've been fortunate to do a lot of learning through the Climate Advocacy Lab, which is a nationwide nonprofit whose mission is to support climate advocates with really solid tools. We love them. It's a member-based organization and it's all free, and they love 350 folks. They have a lot of powerful resources in the Climate Advocacy Lab around how to create messaging that is actually compelling when it comes to climate advocacy. They've got some great trainings in there, like looking at something that Sunrise did a few years ago, where they were testing their Facebook messages. If you put it this way, do people click on it? If you put it this way. And so actually the way the CAT intro email is structured and the way the actions are structured are built off of that data-driven research, which shows that folks need to know they're contributing to something useful, and that they're, whether they're contributing something small or big, that it's all valid. Folks also need us to name when things are a little intimidating. This might feel a little intimidating. That naming of the intimidation needs to be combined with what you're about to do is actually really effective, and we're here to support you. There's like those little 3 ingredients. Research shows that naming those 3 things helps people say, okay, I'm gonna do it. And another piece that we've been talking about really for the last 4 years is that, especially when we're talking about stats, look at these amazing numbers. It can be really easy to accidentally come in with a set of values that says people who are super volunteers who have a bunch of spare time are more valuable than folks who maybe are like single parents working 2 jobs. And that we decided we needed to change our narrative really quickly to start placing a value on everybody's actions and not being like, can you do as many as you possibly can? Yeah, some people can, some people can't. And we decided that we needed to move away from like championing this idea of doing a lot, but championing the idea of doing anything. And that was going to create this like welcoming, digestible, inclusive thing where folks could say, I can see myself in here. And I'm really happy to hear that, Christy, because that all of that, breaking it into tiers, prioritizing, this bit, putting in timestamps, that's come through a lot of hard work in CAT using our 350 Seattle equity filter, asking questions about like, what are the barriers here? And also recognizing that like there's a lot of psychology that goes into inviting folks and welcoming folks. And it can be easy to just be like, it's all important, do it all. And like you said, Christy, it's like there's a feeling of hopelessness that comes with that. And so thanks for that feedback. I'm so excited to tell the team.
I have two more things. Sorry,
Yes,
I forgot.
yeah.
It's really important. That you say it's Monday and Wednesday at 8:30 in the morning. I actually look forward to those. Yeah, I know when they're going to come, and whereas the other ones, they just kind of drop on you when you're least expecting it. So I think, to me, that's very good for us to know there's a pattern of when these are coming out. And I like the timing, do it by 3 o'clock. But if you can't do that, then you can email me. You get these options. It's very good.
Just so you know, Christy, our for that, just like as an example, for the Wednesday alert to come out at 8 or 8:30 in the morning, 3 days of work with build trackers. And then on Tuesday, we started 8 a.m. I started 8 a.m. with the first team, going through it all. How much can we fit in? Where's the links? And by about 9 p.m. on Tuesdays is when I have finished with the final team, the final rounds of edits. So Tuesdays are about 13 hours long. Wow. of just getting it from the 2 days worth of teams down to that, like, let's turn it into actions now. And we are like almost popping the champagne on Tuesday nights. Like, we got it done. It's so exciting. And then the weekend crew starts on Friday night and they finish on Sunday night. And I like folks to know the intense dedication and incredible schedule in the calendar, and people saying, I'll cover your shift for you because we got to get it out by that deadline. There's some busy bees. And that's like our commitment. We really kind of think of ourselves almost like a newspaper. Like, we got to be there for our readers. And if we need to take the day off, we will. But part of how we've set ourselves up for success in doing that this year is building out tons of capacity, cross-training, and redundancy across all of our teams. Because we're doing this level of work joyfully and not burnt out, and not asking anybody to like put in more hours as a volunteer than they truly want to. And that's created this like attitude of plenty, I think, in the CAT team, of like, take the week off, it's not a big deal, or cool, you're going to Whistler, that's awesome. I'll fill in for you, because we just have like so much redundancy and cross training and just so much capacity. And but it did take October through the first week of January to get ourselves there.
So in this session, at the end, what's really going to constitute success?
I love that question, Phil. A couple of weeks ago, I got to present at the University of Puget Sound in real life about the Civic Action Team, and one of the students asked, how do you know when you're successful? and my favorite answer is that if we were to make our measure of success passing a particular policy, well, we'd have to change our measure of success every year with different policies. But we know that the kinds of grassroots advocacy that we do is not the kind of advocacy where we can always draw a straight line between cause and effect and say that, like, we mobilized 11,000 sign-in pros and therefore that lawmaker changed their mind. We know that actually we're just contributing to this whole landscape of advocacy, and we're helping to create the political environment where things are possible. So in CAT a few years ago, we decided to define our success by our mission, which is to educate, empower, and empower folks to make advocacy accessible. And so our definition of success was advocacy accessible for a lot of people? Did lots and lots of people get to use our tools? Did people learn? Did we create education for them? Because our goal is to actually create advocates out there who can keep doing advocacy. Not, it's like winning on climate is so intangible. Trying to pass this policy or that policy. Sometimes we do pass policies, sometimes we help make policies better. But in general, our mission is actually educating and empowering advocates. And so every year we succeed at that mission. Because hundreds and hundreds of people get to do advocacy with us. And so our metrics of success are like, let's get more people signed up. Let's make sure that lots and lots of people have access to our tools, and keep thinking of ways to make our tools accessible to more people. Yeah, that's my long answer, Phil.
I think, Grace, I also really appreciate clarity about how a first action, signing in as a pro on a certain bill, is important. Please do it. You can do this within a couple minutes. But then you also go on to clarify, but what's even more powerful is if you can take a few more minutes and make a phone call or send an email and then make a phone call. That every action you take is really, really valuable. But I do appreciate knowing that some actions have more weight when it comes to making an influence than others. And so I'm just really grateful for that. In your emails and making each action as accessible as the first. And I agree with Christy. I am so grateful to have the consistency of when the emails arrive in my inbox, because I know when they arrive that some of the responses being asked for by the CAT volunteers need to happen that day. So I know if the email comes in my inbox, I need to open it and I need to act. So I just save a little bit of time on Mondays and Wednesdays to respond to those emails. So that consistency is important to me as well. Thank you for that.
Yeah, that's really cool. We've got a new volunteer this year, Peter, and he is like revolutionizing our data. It's so cool. We've had a volunteer, Shanna, for several years now, who runs our data and our Survey Monkey, and she's really, really great. And now the two of them are like innovating, and we have pivot tables now. I don't even know what that means. But it's really cool because Peter's like, we can ask our action data a bunch of questions, and we're finding that interestingly, people take actions between 8 and 10. Like most people take our actions between 8 and 10 in the morning. And then it drops off till about 1:30. And then we've taught folks like, here it is, here's when to expect it, here's when to do your actions. And that's pretty astonishing. And we've also learned that there is an upper limit to how many actions we can put in that laundry list that will cause people to not even open it. And so even though we've got this, you can do 1 or 2 things, 5 minutes, no big deal. If we start putting in like 8 or 9 actions in there, it becomes overwhelming anyways, and people don't engage with it. And so there's this drop off. So we're trying to understand our sweet spot. How big should it be? How much is too much? But we're excited to be able to look at a lot of our data now and say, like, here's an odd fun fact. You know how it's divided into 3 segments. People engage with the middle segment the most. You wouldn't think that. The first segment tends to be a lot of skimming. It's like, oh, okay, cool. Second segment, people are like, oh, maybe I should start taking some of these actions. And the third segment is a drop off. People are like, I'm done, I'm tired. So now we're thinking maybe I actually want to put our important things in that middle part. I don't know. You wouldn't think that. We're so happy to have so many incredible volunteers in CAT who help us ask critical questions, get innovative, get curious about what's actually working and not working. And we also get a just ton of feedback from our users in the form telling us, like, I don't know if folks notice it this week, but we're telling people you can right click on that click here link for emails and just copy the emails out of there. We didn't know that was possible. One of our users taught us that in the feedback forum. Was like, did you know there's an easier way to do this? And so we keep trying to update our tools, especially when people are like, did you know that will never work in this browser? And you should tell people that. And at the end of the day, I hold a small piece of what we do because it's so many dozens of people who are so deeply specialized in what they're doing now, who are adding that specialization to what we do and making what we're doing so sophisticated. I'm still like, wait, how does a bill go through the House and the Senate? Not quite that bad, but I'm still doing my learning. And I think another thing I love to name and kind of bring it back to is that the way we do our campaign each year and then end out with like a lot of feedback and then like try and chew on that feedback has allowed us to do a lot of learning and growing over the years, along with our equity and inclusion tools at 350 Seattle that have helped us ask some really critical questions that we wouldn't have thought to ask. And in particular, one of my kids just made me dinner. So cool. In particular around the way the emails look. So things like always sharing the lead of what organization we're following, highlighting issues of justice or equity in our talking points. Like if we're needing to narrow down our talking points, making sure that the ones that contain issues of justice and equity are focused on. A lot of the elements of what we're actually putting out now have been reworked because of these equity and inclusion questions and tools of saying like, I don't know, let's rework the campaign based on this critical question we maybe forgot to ask last year. And because it's an iterative campaign that's been going on for so many years, that's helped us like improve, gain wisdom, do things better. But I just especially want to uplift that like that work has been led by and engaged with by volunteers in the campaign, really willing to like dig deep and ask critical questions. And I can only take some credit for that.
How long do you spend developing your coalition partnerships? And yeah, I'm kind of curious how you choose which coalition partners to work with and how long you spend developing those relationships, and then how do you land on the bills that you both mutually support? I am so grateful to read like we're following the lead of Front and Center, or we're following the lead of Police Accountability Coalition. And I assume that to be totally true, that 350 Seattle has been in deep conversation with these other organizations, and you truly are on board with their leadership. But yeah, how has that worked? How has that worked over the years?
Yeah, it's a great question, Lynn. I think since the campaign has been around for a long time, there's just a lot of existing relationships that have been held in one form or another. And so lots of folks and lots of organizations that we collaborate with, we've been collaborating with for years at this point. For several years, we were held together in relationship through the Climate Alliance, which was lots and lots and lots and lots of folks. The Climate Alliance went away about a year and a half ago. And so then that was the question that really every organization in that alliance was asking. Who's talking to who? How do we talk to each other? Where's that talking happen? And so I guess I'll name that these relationships between organizations and folks who work at organizations, we're holding them year round. We do our best to stay in conversation, caring about what people are up to. But in this past year, we started really in like kind of September or so, mapping out who's everybody we already know, who's somebody we haven't met yet, who do we have capacity to reach out to. And so I, as a staff lead in the space, really carry carry the work of making sure we're doing that partner outreach, staying in good relationship with our colleagues and comrades, and meeting early and often. We like to share what we're up to. We also like to share our desire to be in an authentic and accountable relationship with our partners. Authentic and accountable relationships is a term that we've been using a lot as like one of our priorities. And that means that when we meet with our partners, we talk about what our hope is, what we're trying to work on, but also what we might be oblivious to, how we're open to receiving feedback, how we'd like to partner, and how we really do crave that like feedback of, hey, we don't like what you're doing. And so there's always more people we want to be friends with and reach out to and continue to build. I think there's lots and lots of room to continue to build, but we've managed to, to be in relationship with folks and with organizations for multiple years at this point, and we're sort of able to build on that, and through a changing landscape, like when we don't have this coalition with a facilitator that has us with shared notes, how do we make sure we're knocking on each other's doors and saying like, what are you up to, and let's hang out. And so we're really glad this past year, the year before, all the organizations without the Climate Alliance were like, okay, how are we going to do this? This last year, we had the time and capacity to really do a lot of early outreach and say like, this is what we're up to. What are you all up to really get those communication channels happening early and often. And yeah, Lynn, when it comes to saying that we're following the lead of an organization, often what that looks like is either we're in direct meetings with them on a regular basis, like myself as a staff member, or our bill tracker and policy teams are set up in a way that like part of that team sits on the shift zero call every week and gets the information to take back to our crew. And we work with our volunteers to make sure that folks are set up for success in sitting in those partnership spaces, or various organizing tables with FutureWise or with different organizations. Lots of clarity on what it means to be a volunteer in that space and how to report back to our crew. So that we're not, when we say we're following the lead of an organization, we're not just looking at their website and like, that seems cool. We're talking and we're hanging out. And part of that is like, speaks to a network of relationships. If we want to advocate for more policy areas, we want to build more relationships and get in close relationships with folks who are focused on various areas. I'll name that as the last part of our mission: educating and empowering folks to advocate for sound and just policy while strengthening partnerships and relationships. And we decided a few years ago we needed that part in there because it's very easy to plow forward with like, we're going to pass these policies and we don't care about anybody else. And we actually, we define our success as doing it in partnership with others.
That's beautiful.
And sometimes that means slowing down and being like, oh, we don't actually understand that policy very well. we don't really have an opinion. We don't know. One thing we're really excited about is, as of last night, we have our texting capacity back with the Civic Action Team. I don't know if folks remember, but last year we didn't have it, but we did have it the year before. There was some changes, some laws, basically with Action Network. We had to get a very legal and legitimate data privacy policy in place. Took about 5 months with some awesome volunteers to make that happen, and it's finally in place. So as of last night, we'll be sending out a weekly action text to the 780 people who have signed up with us to take text actions. So that represents a whole bunch of folks who are like kind of ready and waiting and haven't necessarily been able to take action with us yet. And we're really, really excited because that's another type of accessible tool that's like, lots of folks are not email people, plenty of folks are not social media people. But our text alerts are going to be one-click actions where people can literally just open the link and take that action from their phone. And so we're super excited. One of our interns has been trained and set up to do that now in like coordination with our social media team. So I realized last night after we sent out our text and it didn't come to my phone that I wasn't signed up for it. But I also found out that as folks, if you go to our website to sign up, if you're already signed up for the email, but not for the text, it'll give you that option. It'll be like, I don't know, when I went to do it, the website was like, hi, Grace. They knew it was me. Yes, you can do text. We already have your email address. So we're getting ready to create a new social media post for that on Friday. And we'll really be like talking about it in the Monday email. But kind of what we're hoping to do is encourage folks to consider helping to recruit, get people excited to sign up for our text alert. We're creating these powerful tools and only as many people that see them will take them. And kind of between now and the end of April when session ends, our thought is like, what is one of the things that we can be doing right now to dial up how effective we are? Just get more people signed up. Get more people signed up for text, get more people signed up for email, get these tools into more hands. Please help spread the word at 350 Eastside out through y'all's channels as you're thinking about spreading the word about CAT. We're especially excited about having people sign up for text.
Are the text messages asking for the same actions that come in the emails?
Ooh, great question. Yeah, it's always one special action for the email.
Okay.
So it'll be the same one that goes to the social media team as out to the text. And those ones are by nature always going to be really simple, generally a sign in. Because we can't ask folks to like be like looking at their talking points and their phone kind of thing. But yeah. Yeah, it's one highlighted action out of the action list. I think of more exciting things to share about CAT. I do love CAT. Yeah, I'm curious. I'm curious if y'all at 350 Eastside have access to or able to use. We have like an amplification toolkit to help spread the message about CAT with some like social media graphics and some language. Bye, Jan. Oh, in the next 5 minutes or so, yeah. Have you all seen the recruitment toolkit? Yeah, I think somebody might have updated it recently or there was old information in there about the campaign launch, but yeah, we encourage folks to try and help spread the word out to like your own email lists and stuff through 350 groups, because right now I think we're at 270 people have taken action through CAT this year. We send our email out to about 1,700 people, so we're always like trying to get more people to open that email. But we really just want to get more folks turned on to the tools and excited about taking action. So yeah.
Our newsletter usually comes out the first week of the month, and we're happy to, put in more CAT connecting information.
Yeah.
What would be the best way to gather that information from the CAT team?
Yeah, it's a great question. I was thinking, oh yeah, this last weekend I was helping to write the 350 Seattle newsletter, and we were like, we kind of want to get people to do this forestry action, but we kind of want to recruit them into the campaign. How should we do that? So what I did was actually created like a little section of the newsletter was like, sign up for CAT, we're awesome. But here's our link to sign up, and here's an example of a cool action you could take with us this week. And so I kind of combined an action that I took out of the SurveyMonkey with the sign up link to take more actions with CAT, and just was like, this is highlighting the kind of actions we do, and sign up here to take more. But I think a really simple thing the recruitment toolkit should have really simple language for just like sign up to take action. But I don't know. I kind of like the idea of pairing it with grabbing one of the actions out of the list as like, here's a great example of something that you could be doing. Or it could be as something as simple as, you know, Cat's awesome, sign up to take action with us, link to the whole Survey Monkey from that day, and just say, here's an example of the great tools you can take.
That's great. Thank you.
Yeah.
Any other way that 350 Eastside can support your work?
Great question. Do you all use Instagram?
I think Emily uses it more than
A
any
little
of the
bit.
rest
I
of us.
try, and I'm not very good at posting things on it. But if you have stuff to post, please send it to me, and I'll definitely.
Yeah. One thing that might also just be really simple, Emily. So we have some like, here's who we are and how to sign up with us, kind of like simple posts in our materials, but also when we post from the 350 Washington Instagram, that's a really, yeah, just sharing it into your stories.
Yeah.
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 And the social media team is on a schedule of like Mondays we post our stats for the week. Wednesdays we post our action. Later in the week we try and post education. What I just dropped into the chat here is our recruitment toolkit where you can see like some like generic email language and some like pre-made graphics with some text for them.
Nice.
And those are great for like creating your own posts, but I think just sharing the 350 WA posts to y'all's Instagram is a great way to get it out there. And it helps also connect us as a network of like, oh yeah, this is our shared campaign. We really love the idea of letting all of our Instagrams talk to each other across 350 Washington and being able to share each other's work in our stories. So that's also a two-way street, which means that the 350 WA CAT social media team right now is focused on our legislative work, but the account is not just about the campaign. So we like to be able to share other local groups' work in our stories. So like literally anytime you post on the 350 Eastside Instagram, you can send it to the 350 WA account just as a little message, and that's our alert of like, oh yeah, we'll share this to our story. And we've got a whole team right now working on like building out our followers and engagement and stuff. So we love the idea of our Instagrams getting to talk to each other and talking about each other on Instagrams. Yeah.
Well, I just have to say I'm like Christy Weir on a couple different email lists for people doing legislative action. And the CAT email lists are the most consistently, what's the right word? Foolproof action opportunities. So a lot of the other emails will say, go ahead and sign in pro here, and you try and go ahead and sign in pro and you're directed somewhere else, or you don't know where you are anymore. And it's all with best intentions, but when you say the amount of hours that go into developing that email that goes out on a Monday and Wednesday, I can't even imagine, but I just want to let you know that it's working. It's really, it's working, and it's working really well. And it must be very challenging to do because not many other organizations are able to have the consistency of operation that CAT does.
Yeah. Yeah. Thank you, Lynn. It's so great to get that feedback. Especially after working on this for like multiple years of like, you all should see the conversations we have. What do you think our users would think of this? Or do you think that like we're narrating our purpose well enough? Or like, we spend so much time thinking about how this is landing, how it's being received, how it's being interpreted, whether folks feel like they can see themselves in the work or if they're feeling like excluded from the narrative. But it's like, I don't know, not shots in the dark, but we have our feedback and we can kind of see what's working and not working, but we do spend a lot of time critically thinking about how to do this work good, and like are super curious if it's working for people. So yeah, I'm just really grateful for the feedback.
In your Survey Monkey, is there an opportunity to say what's working well? I know that there's a little comment box, like, did something not work for you? Or did you have any problems? But I'm trying to remember, is there a comment box for, hey, did this work well for you? Or what did you like best about this week's email?
That's a good question. I think people use the comment box for that, but you're right, because I think that the way we have it set up is definitely like fishing for problems. We could be fishing for compliments too.
Yes, do really. Yeah.
Yeah.
You need them. You work so hard. Yeah. It might
Yeah.
be nice.
We do get tons of thanks.
Oh, good.
Thanks. Lots and lots of gratitude. And now we've got kind of 2 communication flows set up with a couple of our interns. One of our interns is looking just at the feedback that's coming in, helping to kind of triage. Sometimes the feedback is really important. Like, why are you taking that position? Doesn't seem good. We need to talk. Like, we want to be open to that feedback. And sometimes it's like, hey, did you know if you right click on that, it's way easier to grab email addresses? No, we didn't, but we know now. And then we also have our inbox, which is very sad to say we've been locked out of it, and we're still trying to get back into it. So we know that people are emailing, like Lynn, you emailed me at the info at a few weeks ago about this conversation. We still haven't been able to get into the inbox. And it's the weirdest thing. Like, it's some sort of failure on Gmail's part, or we can't figure it out. We're gonna figure it out. Anyways, being in that cycle of getting feedback and hearing what's working and not working for people is like, it's good to get the positive feedback, but also that, like, this thing didn't work. I'm getting click-itis. My thumbs are getting tired.
Well, Kat got a great review at the Monday meeting of the Washington Clean Energy Coalition, which is another one of the groups that we participate in.
Oh, that's really cool. That's awesome. I'm also glad to hear that, like, the welcomingness and warmness is coming through, because it's hard to, like, bring a little bit of humanity, or hard to know how much humanity is coming through. But I will say that the last few years in the campaign, internally in the volunteer spaces with everybody, we've worked really hard and really intentionally to build a strong positive culture together that is based on, like, joyfulness, that is respects people's boundaries and, like, time and capacity, and creates a lot of shared language around, like, how to ask for time off or say I'm in over my head. And each year I feel like we're actually spending more time on that culture work together, and it just is paying off in spades in terms of, like, 20 people on a bill tracking call every Monday night because everybody wants to be in there talking, and that's just one team. The level of enthusiasm and feeling like no one does have to take it on and be a superhero. We don't allow that. We don't let anybody work too hard. We want people to be cross-training, to be taking time off, to be because we've had so many volunteers that return each year. Now we're looking at, this past year we were looking at, like, oh, we've got a wealth of wisdom and skills here. We focus heavily on creating cross-training videos and content, just so we can, like, archive how this works, and then cross-training people, so that our skills are getting, like, institutionalized a bit better. And something about just naming right off the bat, early and often, nobody's going to work too hard. We're going to have a good time. We're going to take care of ourselves and each other. We're going to have the ability to say no. And we're gonna get creative, and like we're gonna really like kind of solve these things together in really like thriving, successful teams. The only reason that people would come back and do this every year is if it was fun. Otherwise, we just wouldn't imagine doing it like a volunteer-based campaign where you say goodbye to people in March and hope they come back in October. That wouldn't work if people weren't finding like a really deep sense of like meaning in CAT, and that if it wasn't joyful. Because if it was just like a burnout party, people wouldn't come back. And for me as a staff member in the space, it means that I feel joyful in the space too. It's like a great feeling to be helping to connect folks with really meaningful teams and roles and advocacy as volunteers, because that's what people crave when they're wanting to make a difference in the climate crisis. So yeah.
Sounds like a good point to end on.
I'm going to show you all this amazing tofu spring roll.
Ooh, looks delish.
My 17-year-old is making for me for dinner. So sweet.
Yay. Ooh.
Yeah.
Grace,
Well,
thank you so very much.
Yes, thank you so much for having me and inviting me, and just for being such a great crew. We've got I think Anthony Hevia and Ross are both folks who are like, we're with 350 Eastside and we're with CAT. And they're both deeply, deeply engaged. Anthony is part of our social media team and helps with a lot of our partner amplification, and Ross is our building electrification team lead, who sits at the Shift Zero table for us. So we're just so glad to be and have you all as part of the network.
Woohoo.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Grace,
All right.
thanks, and enjoy your dinner.